So I know Rafi very well now, and so Rafi actually, usually his resume is a little understated, but actually Rafi works with, Rafi and Jeremy Levine basically head the consumer kind of facing, I guess, investment thesis at Bessemer Partners. And Bessemer is the oldest venture firm in New York, that's for sure. Maybe in America, or?
I think it's an old venture.
Okay,
we're trying to break out from that brand, and so what we did is we invested in Chieh.
Okay,
actually.
full disclosure.
So we were an angel investor in Vox, which is our favorite Costco killer.
Appreciate that.
In the moment.
So this is the night where the tables are turned, and so
I get to.
Well, no, I was interviewing you, I think, and so usually Rafi and the VCs bust my chops, and so now it's my turn to kind of turn the tables a little bit. But Rafi, before Bessemer, he was head of growth at Foursquare, so right around the corner, and so you'll be getting a lot of good questions, I think, tonight. So I'll cut right to the chase, and so actually before that, give a little background on like kind of what you do at Bessemer, like what kind of investments you look at.
Sure. I mean, I think you said it mostly. I mean, I've been at Bessemer for a year now, and two of the areas that I've been most excited about. One is creation on mobile. So obviously, from my Foursquare DNA and from my background, like I've been really passionate about what the next frontier is for mobile. And I think creation really hasn't been cracked. Like how do you like empower the creative class? Because if you think about the iPhone now, the iPhone camera, as you guys all know, is more powerful than like most DSLRs. But the native camera application like isn't strong enough to power a lot of things you like to do with it. So what's the whole ecosystem of apps going to emerge around enabling that creation? That's one area. Another area is kind of around like vertical marketplaces. You can imagine a horizontal marketplaces, it's like Craigslist or eBay where you can buy anything and sell anything. Now there are all these vertical marketplaces emerging, like Uber is the perfect example. It doesn't even feel like a marketplace, but it's matching buyers and sellers, and it's totally mobile enabled. And these marketplaces, once they get spinning, liquidity is really hard to disrupt. So it's a long answer to what I'm interested in, which is creation on mobile and marketplace businesses. But generally, anything consumer oriented or with an amazing team like Chieh has at Vox, I think we're interested in.
So not yet, because Rafi and Jeremy's investments include Yelp, right? You guys were the first investors in Yelp when it was just 100,000 subscribers in the city of San Francisco. LinkedIn, right? You guys were there early. Pinterest, you guys were the first institutional investors in Pinterest. OLX, like an online exchange. Am I missing stuff? Oh, Soap.com, Quidzy as well. The first big round of Quidzy. So they have a pretty good track record on spotting.
It's
spotting
interesting. Yeah, I mean,
so.
like you mentioned Pinterest, and I'm sure you guys all saw the news that Pinterest raised more money from Ron Conway at a $5 billion valuation, and a lot of people like send us congratulations, like your company raised this much money, and I think congratulating someone on financing is like congratulating a football team on the score at halftime, right? It's like you never know. It's all on paper, but yeah, we've had some great investments, and it's been fun.
So let's rewind a bit. So I know you were head of growth at Foursquare. So talk us through that, man. Like, what was that like? Early days, you had a lot of companies go up, a lot of companies go down that space, and the one that kind of emerged from the rubble is Foursquare, right? Like Sonar went under, a lot of these other ones went under, but Foursquare has survived. And so talk us through that from the early days till now.
It's interesting. I mean, so when I joined Foursquare, I actually joined coming out of 4 years of management consulting at sort of a large consulting firm. And so I joined in the analytics group. And one of the most interesting, I was the second person in the analytics group. And we were tracking every metric in the company on Google spreadsheets, which is like a joke for a company like Foursquare, right? So the question was, how do we transform from tracking everything in Google spreadsheets to actually figuring out what metrics matter and how to drive sort of the growth of the company based on the metrics? And one of the things that I saw was we don't pay enough attention to signups, onboarding, retention, and reactivation. What I mean by reactivation is someone who joins Foursquare, is active for a period of time, is inactive for a period of time, and then comes back, or how to get them back, because they're not a user who's never signed up. You have their email address, you have their contact information, you have a way to reach out to them. So reactivation was a big thing, but being able to think about those metrics was really important for Foursquare as we sort of thought through like the different specific use cases, especially relative to our competitors. So for example, relative to Yelp, which is funny now that I work for an investor in Yelp, but at Foursquare we thought of ourselves as a Yelp killer. And what we needed to do was to get people more excited about the discovery aspect of Foursquare. And so a big part of my job at Foursquare was thinking about how do you change the product to create a first-time user experience that was more discovery-oriented versus social. So that was like, I think one of the biggest things that I learned at Foursquare was how to shift user behavior in that way.
And so what about, like, because we are at like direct agents tonight, and so what did user acquisition look like in terms of the funnel, in terms of the channels that you guys used, and what kind of worked, what didn't?
So the biggest job that I had as the head of growth was to figure out how to make the product inherently viral, right? Because it's free acquisition effectively to use your users as an acquisition channel, but that's really incredibly hard. So in the beginning, what we did is, the classic thing that every mobile app does: invite your friends when you sign up. Now, when you think about that intuitively, it makes absolutely no sense, and all the user research we did showed that that makes absolutely no sense. Asking someone to invite their friends to an app where you don't know what the utility that you're going to get is out of it doesn't really work. So we changed that. We turned that on its head, and we said you should invite friends at points in your user experience where it makes sense to have friends. So, for example, I'll give one example, which was, let's say you landed in a new city, pull out Foursquare. You're like, where should I go to dinner tonight? That's like a great use case for Foursquare. Instead of saying, oh, you don't have any friends who checked in this area, we don't have any recommendations for you, it's like, invite your Facebook friends who we know live in this city to Foursquare, so the next time you can get their great recommendations. So like really targeted specific times for invitations that made it viral, because both the inviter and the invitee got utility out of it. That was one of the interesting channels.
Yeah, so like, now I know the latest with Foursquare, I know you're a little bit removed from it, a few years, but not even actually that long, but they've since split into two separate apps. I mean, I would love to kind of hear your thoughts on this, and like, I've never heard your thoughts, and so like,
I think there are pros and cons. I mean, you guys all know how hard it is to acquire users for an app. So imagine having to acquire users for two apps. Like I've been kind of saying, I think that one of the biggest values of Foursquare is kind of the data and the platform and the recommendations. And that was always kind of buried in the existing app behind this layer of social, which to some subset of people just didn't really feel interesting or useful. And so really carving out like the two different use cases and separating them, I think, is a good thing. I don't know if any of you guys read Fred Wilson's post recently. He read a great blog, by the way. He wrote about kind of these app ecosystems, which were sets of apps created by one company on your phone. So Dropbox, right, has Dropbox, it has Mailbox now, and it has Loop, which it just acquired. Foursquare now has two. Pinterest might have a couple someday. And it's interesting to think about like what is the suite of apps that a company can have rather than just one, because I think it just allows a more interesting variety of use cases. But the acquisition problem is tough. Apps, at least on the iPhone, maybe a little bit better on Android, don't lend themselves to native switching, native multitasking. Like it's not a topic that's been addressed or fixed. Like I think they're starting to fix it now with a lot of the Facebook app deep linking, and a lot of like the messaging apps have kind of like a native platform built in that allows you to switch really easily between things and messaging. Like, how do you guys think about that? Like, it's so hard to switch between.
So we found that in that like when you were even able to cross promote to another app, even if you switched over to it, the kind of
drop off or whatever.
Exactly, the drop off was always incrementally worse than the app that came before. But you bring up a good point, because I think I heard a very good kind of talk lately about like the internet usage on your mobile device. And if you think about your own kind of usage on your mobile device, like the internet has become, the actual web browsing portion of it has become less and less relevant. Like I forgot, it was a shockingly low percentage of daily users that actually use the web browser in their mobile device. And so that actually wipes the slate clean, right? In that there's a whole set of companies now that kind of are claiming that the internet is actually not applicable to mobile, and that the slate is wiped clean. And so I forgot what company it was, but then their pitch was that we are the internet for your mobile device, and that they are not the web, and that they're developing cards. and that they think that is how you will kind of search
I
on
think
the web.
it might be Kick. I'm not sure, or like I'm not sure who it is, but I'm kind of bullish on the whole trend of the mobile browser
Uh-huh.
being the future, because like just like it happened on desktop, it's playing at the same desktop story again, right? You're going from siloed software to like right now on my computer, what do I run the whole time? I run my email client, which is Outlook in my case, but everything else I do in the browser, and that's my way of multitasking is tabs and so I wonder if the same thing could happen on mobile. I don't see why not, especially with responsive.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's so much happening that can make that good case.